Because our gas and electric bills are going sky high, I thought I'd give you a few hints and tips on the gas side of it, because your gas boiler may need a little bit of attention and adjustment. It may need replacing. So when do we replace a boiler? At 18 years of age, if not earlier. And that's assuming every 12 months a registered gas installer goes to yours and provides the necessary replacement parts or checking over or cleaning. But if your boiler is more than 18 years of age, I would strongly suggest you bite the bullet and replace the boiler. Also, replace the pipes and the radiators, because it doesn't matter how many power flushes you do, if you fit a nice new Combi boiler or any boiler, and muck and rubbish from the old system will find its way back into here, and your guarantee will not cover it. My advice is remove everything, start again. As you saw on the intro, I was installing for 45 years and I've been training here for the last 20. And walking into people's houses for all those years, I know for a certainty many radiators are the wrong size of the room. So therefore, the only thing that you could do is to turn the thermostat up high, so you can fry an egg on the radiator, and that costs a huge amount of money. Obviously nowadays with condensing boilers, we don't have that problem, provided the radiator is large enough to heat the room to 22 degrees or bedrooms to 20, because they will have thermostatic radiator valves to control the temperature lower. And we have smart thermostats. But the important thing is that if you're looking at long-term, low-cost gas heating or even oil heating, is to get the latest boiler from manufacturers. That way you can get the latest, cheapest to run system. And for example, this is a Valent boiler. I would strongly recommend you only fit Valent controls. If it's a Worcester Bosch, use Worcester Bosch controls, and so on. They are the cheapest of the cheapest, as I've said in many videos. So what can you do, the householder? First of all, look at the heat loss. If we have a question, as we do on the radio sometimes, and I ask listeners, where do you think your house loses the most heat? Is it up the roof, through the walls, the windows, or down below? The answer is walls. Make sure that you don't have a cavity and it's insulated, because the walls are the largest surface area. A lot of people think it's windows, but it's not. And it's definitely not the loft either, because it's well insulated. Even if you had nothing there, the heat doesn't rise that much up the staircase. If you have a bungalow, then possibly you would have a larger heat loss, but most people in bungalows insulate their houses. That's normal. But it's the walls, so have a look. Could you qualify for a grant, or just use that money for there, add in extra insulation? Obviously, when we look at windows, we should all have double glazed windows, or triple glazed if you live in a really, really cold part of the country. Many windows, and nowadays I think it's compulsory, there's little vents across the top. Leave them open all around the house, because it's all to do with air pressure, which is greater outside. So if you have the warm part of the house, the sun is shining, which means the southern facing end, that air pressure outside will push it to the front of the house or side of the house, wherever, because that's the way air pressure works. So don't close them off, because the house will start to smell and stagnate. We need a change of air. If you have ventilation in the roof, make sure it's actually working. Don't block them off, and don't block off the eaves at the side. We need the air to go under the gutter, up into the loft, it hits the top of the loft and then comes back down again and goes out the other side. And obviously the northern side will push into the southern side, being denser air and stronger air. So never ever block air vents in the loft. The same thing down below. If you've got air bricks around the footpath and the bottom of the house, never ever block them up. Don't worry about spiders, cobwebs, nothing. They're there for a reason, because under the house it needs to breathe, and they'll be at the front, at the back and at the side. It's absolutely crucial you don't do that, because dampness will go into the wood and then you have a very big problem, and it's going to be extremely expensive to solve. So that wood needs to be dried out and kept in pristine. So please don't cover vents of any description. You can add a vent. The best vent you can add is over the bath or shower, and it extracts out through the roof and keeps the moisture to a minimum. So I've made a video about condensation, so have a look at that. The next thing we could do is, maybe if you've got single glazing, is to put thicker curtains on strong rings. Another thing to do is don't cover radiators from the front, because it needs the circulation going around the room. And what happens is, in the circle, it starts off on the top of the radiator. That air naturally rises, hits the ceiling, goes to the back of the room, gradually cools down, hits the floor, and then comes under the radiator, and there's your circle. So if you put a curtain in front of a radiator or a settee, anything at all, you're going to lower and slow down the heat trying to leave that radiator. It's been smothered. You're going to have the warmest windows in the street, and that's what you're paying for. So please make sure that curtains don't block, or furniture, anything blocks a radiator. If necessary, call a heating installer in and ask them to move the radiator to a side wall. There's very good, strong, very attractive double radiators that can go from floor to ceiling, and that will replace the one that's under the window because there's an obstruction. So there are ways around it. And also ask that person to calculate the heat loss. Something else you can do yourself is extremely easy, and that's turn it down. All of the manufacturers will give you an installation manual stroke service. Sometimes they'll give you a user guide, but to save paper, they've sort of incorporated that in the installation side. So have a look how to adjust it. So we'll do a close-up of this particular one, which is common to a lot of new boilers. They're all got digital displays. And to access them, it's basically, you're just going to switch it on and it'll respond. I think all of them will do that now. So I'll show you on the latest one, and I'll show you how you can turn down the hot water and heating on a slightly older version. So what else can you do to lower your bills? Well, thermostats. These dictate how much your gas bill is going to be, because as soon as they click on, yes, your boiler fires up, but your gas meters start going to be working at 100 miles an hour. So having one of these old-fashioned mechanical ones, replacing it for a nice digital one, will save you money. And the other thing, of course, is location. If yours is in a drafty hallway here, and I've made a video of it, obviously, to save people money, consider getting it moved to a smarter digital that's either RF, which means you can walk about the house, or smart, you can walk about the planet and keep that boiler on for the lowest amount of time, or the shortest amount of time, to be grammatically correct, and that saves you money. So location of the thermostat is absolutely crucial. Get it out that hall. I don't know who thought of that one, because they haven't got a clue on saving energy. The other thing, of course, is location of the boiler, particularly a combi boiler. So if somebody clever has said, we'll put this up in the loft and you're going to save money, no, it's going to cost you twice, 3 times more than if it was downstairs in the kitchen or in an airing cupboard. Because obviously when you open a tap, this is going to respond immediately onto high gas pressure. And if that's right up there somewhere across the loft base, you're going to waste a lot of water, and that's called a draw off. So not only will your water bill go up unnecessarily, but your gas bill will definitely double or even triple because it's up there. And don't forget, you need extra controls. You have to have lagging on there, frost protection on there, antifreeze has got to go into the system, etc., etc. And it's definitely going to have an annual boiler check, just like all the other ones. But don't leave that one to go mental up in the loft. It's the worst place on the planet. Bring it as close as you can to the taps. So if you're having a boiler installed, think of that wastage, because you're going to be stuck with this for the next 14, 16 years. And all of that water is just going to be going straight down the kitchen sink, and you're paying for it. But more importantly, the gas is getting more expensive and you're just wasting it unnecessarily. So think about location. Let me show you on this digital display how easy it is to change the temperature. First of all, hot water. We'll press the hot water tap and it's showing 65 degrees. Way too hot for a combi. We need somewhere around 50, 40, 30. So what we're going to do is just press the minus button and we're going to take this down to 40 degrees. Or even, let's make it 50 degrees, and that'll cover a bath, because bath has to be 50, everything else is 60. So we'll okay that, it'll go into the memory bank, we go back. So that's going to save a small fortune. And remember, in the summer, do this, but bring it down to 40 degrees, which is perfectly acceptable for a shower, washing, shaving, that's it. But not a bath, it's not enough. We need 50 degrees C for a bath. Let's check out the central heating. So we'll press that on. 65, way too high. We can do better than that. Some of these, you won't see 65, you could see 75 or 80, which is really, really expensive, and it's stressing this boiler up to bits. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take it down to 60. And we'll enter that, okay. Now, the reason why it's 60 is because that's the flow temperature. And if you have the boiler correctly maintained, the return temperature will be 20 degrees lower, which is 40. That's condensing mode, dirt cheap. Because once that return temperature hits 50, this boiler stops being a condensing boiler and just drops back down to the old-fashioned non-condenser, which is dearer to run. So by doing this, I have forced it to stay in condensing mode all of the time. So we just go back and there we are. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Make all of the flow temperatures 60 and the return temperature should be 40, but you need to check with the manufacturer. If you can't do this from the instruction manual, then you need to phone the installer, or better still, phone the factory and ask for guidance. Often I go into a house and people say, this boiler's rubbish, it costs an arm and a leg, it's noisy, kettling, banging, and it's no good at all. Now, it's not the boiler, it's the settings. Look, I often see this, maximum, completely wrong. So here's our radiator circuit. So if we go click, you can just see it's on number 6, and that's the recommended setting for eco. But there's nothing to stop you going right down to, for example, 4, and seeing how that is. This could be an autumn setting. This could be an autumn setting, depending on how well insulated your house is. And remember, it's the radiators that makes your fuel bill. On the hot water side again, here, it clicks on 6, and that's the recommended temperature. Because we're not storing water, in the summertime or spring, summer and autumn, maybe number 3 could suit you quite happily. And that's it. Always remember, turn it down, save you money. Get the boiler to respond to you and the way you live. Start from a lower setting and turn up. So you might even want to start from 2. That's going to be quite warm water. May not be enough for a bath or a shower, but there again to hand wash or all the rest of it. Learn to just turn it up to maybe number 3 and see how we survive. So as we go into autumn, the water in the street's going to be cooler, so we need to raise the boiler temperature up slowly to match that difference. But don't just put it blindly to 60 or flat out, because that's not going to save you any money and it's going to stress the boiler.